How's it going, guys? Power 5 Fanatics here with another video. Today we wanted to discuss the four biggest takeaways we've had through this past week of football, week 7. It's been a great, season so far, and, a lot of these things are starting to come to fruition a little bit. One of the things that I thought was a interesting idea, and it's more of a question rather than a takeaway, because I don't think we have the answer to this yet. I think we might have it here in a couple weeks. The question I'm posing here is, do the 2 Ohio State wins that they've had in the past several weeks look as good now as they did when they happened? And what I mean by that is, a few weeks ago, of course, they played the big game against Nebraska at Lincoln, and they beat them 48-7. It was the game day game of the week, and Ohio State controlled that game from the very beginning and just really embarrassed Nebraska at home. And then the next week, they go and they play Michigan State. Again, we kind of had a different perception about Michigan State, that maybe they were inconsistent, but they were still a good team, especially on defense. And they beat them 34-10. Another great win. But we also had Minnesota go and beat Nebraska 34-7. And I'm not saying Minnesota's not a great team, but we're not putting them at the high, as high of a level as we're putting Ohio State, and they're able to beat Nebraska 34-7. And then last week, Wisconsin plays Michigan State and beats them 38-0. Completely blanks them, beats them worse than Ohio State did. So my question, and something I think is going to kind of come to fruition as Ohio State plays Wisconsin here in a couple weeks, do these wins look as good now as they did before? We kind of elevated Ohio State to number 1 in our polls after seeing these types of games, but then now we're starting to see that maybe these teams aren't as good as we thought they were.
It could be a combination of a lot of things. It could be some of these other teams like
maybe
Wisconsin and Minnesota
are better than we thought too.
Or they're improving.
Yeah,
I think definitely Minnesota has improved in the last month. Mainly their defense.
Yeah.
Their defense has improved a lot. They've really been pretty good offensively the whole time. And same thing with Wisconsin. Maybe their offense is getting better in reverse.
Right.
Which takes me into the second takeaway at the midway point after week 7. Wisconsin, they're just on a historic defensive pace right now. It's pretty amazing, really. Through 6 games, they've allowed 29 points. So what is that? Less than 5 points a game. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's like 4 points a game.
It's the least amount of points since 1993. Florida State. I'm pretty sure I was watching football then. I was alive, but I think that was the year they won the national title. So you can see what 26 years ago,
Wisconsin, yeah.
Since there's been this least amount or this many points scored.
The other thing they're doing is just blanking teams. I mean, how many teams have had 4,
Yeah, they've had 4 shutouts in 6 games.
Like in their whole history. I don't know.
Wisconsin's never had 4 shutouts in a season ever, and they've done it in 6 games. So
it's incredible.
It's just this could really turn into a historic season for them in the second half of their season, and it might turn out to be a national title for them. And if it is, it's going to be one of those kind of going against the grain. Recently in the last decade at least, usually you got to have some semblance of an offense, like an elite offense, to win a national title. Well, Wisconsin's really trying to do it with an elite defense. So we'll see how this pans out when they play Ohio State, and if they actually get through the Big Ten and then into the playoffs. What's your next takeaway?
Yeah, well, that actually leads me to my next takeaway. Like Vince was saying, Wisconsin's kind of doing it against the grain. And I think this season, more than I've noticed recently, it seems like you have to have some type of explosive offense to really compete at a high level. Again, we're going to see kind of how this season progresses, because we're going to get to see a high-level offense go against a high-level defense in Ohio State versus Wisconsin in a few weeks. Mm-hmm. That game is going to be huge. I cannot wait for that game.
Are they playing that one in Columbus? I'm not real sure.
I'm not sure. I can't remember. I'll need to look at that.
That's going to determine a lot. Obviously, on who wins it maybe.
But if you look at who we have in our top 4, who right now we're projecting to get to the, as the playoff teams, we have some elite offenses. We have
I believe the top four have
Ohio
what would
State
be
at
my,
1, LSU 2, or Alabama. And
they would have my 4 Heisman Trophy
Oklahoma.
candidates also. Those 4 teams. So there you go. And that's Fields, Tua, Burrow, and Fields, Tua, Burrow. Who are we missing here?
Jalen Hurts.
Yeah, Jalen Hurts. So, in other words, these teams also have the quarterbacks in place, and one of those is probably going to win the Heisman Trophy, or one of them is going to win the Heisman Trophy.
And we're really not too far removed from, when LSU and Alabama used to play, and they would be like 9-6, in the national title. I don't know. I don't think that's going to happen this year. I think it's going to be high flying offenses.
Unless Wisconsin does something, or a team like even a Penn State, or or even if Michigan pulls it out here, in the next
or maybe
few
at
weeks.
Georgia, they're still in there too. And that kind of also goes back to my idea that maybe you do have to have an elite offense. They weren't able to score enough points against South Carolina to win that game. Really, holding a team to 20 points in 2019, you probably should win that game. But they weren't able to score any points. So it's going to be interesting to see how that kind of progresses as well with the offenses.
And we're staying kind of in this defensive mode. And here's my other takeaway. The other defense that's been so good for the last month and a half is Oregon. Everybody that wrote them off after losing to Auburn week 1. Since then, in the last 5 games, they've given up 25 points. So that's 5 points a game. Their defense has given up 1 touchdown in 5 games.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
It is, and it's just like Wisconsin's doing some incredible things too.
Yeah. I mean, Oregon is also. So really, right now, to me, the 2 best defenses in college football are Wisconsin and Oregon. And you probably would never hear somebody say that about the Pac-12.
Yeah.
But plus Oregon, just think about this. They also have an elite quarterback. Could be the number 1 pick in the draft. Their offense hasn't been on the same level as their defense, but they do have somebody that can pull the trigger. And if they actually went out in the Pac-12, which I think there's a real good chance they could do, they're going to be in the playoffs.
I think they have J.J. Verrett, I think, is their running back, and preseason they had, a lot of the sports writers were saying one of the best offensive lines in the whole country. This team could really start putting this thing together.
They really could. And it's weird talking about defenses at Oregon like this. You think Nike and Chip Kelly
and the offenses
and 49 points a game, but it hasn't been that way with Oregon. I mean,
Mario Cristobal, and his squad.
I mean, this last game they beat Colorado. They actually did score some points in that one. The week before they didn't score a lot, but they beat Colorado 45-3. Another thing about that is Colorado's a good offense. They've been averaging 34.5 points a game, and they hold them to 3, and they got 4 turnovers in that game. So Oregon and Wisconsin, hey, what can you say? First half of the year, I would say they're the 2 best defenses, and we'll see if that's enough to get it done as we move towards the playoffs.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if that Oregon defense is going to be able to carry them until they can get the offense really rocking. And I think that they can do that too.
They could be scary.
They definitely have all the potential in the world to do that. So, if that's the case, maybe a 1-loss Pac-12 team does have a chance to get to the playoffs. It kind of depends on how they, are able
I think
to
they
string
would
some
get
wins
there
together.
at this point. If Oregon wins out, I know some things may have to happen, but I think there's going to be enough on their resume to probably include them in the 4 teams. Yeah. Well, guys, hey, thanks for watching our videos. We're looking forward to the second half of the college football season. Like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and we'll be talking to you.
Thanks.